Hey everyone, welcome to the patch 4.2 jungle tier list. In here, I will be rating all of the viable junglers from the worst up until the best to give you an idea on what are the strong junglers right now. Take note that this list is only from my perspective and some champions can be moved based on mastery. Hope that this can help, and without further ado, let's get into it. Starting from the C tier, the champions listed here can actually jungle but are not commonly seen in the jungle role. There are other possible champions I can include, but I didn't because these are champions that you prefer not to be seen in the jungle. These junglers are played mostly just for fun because there are literally better jungle options than the champions listed in this tier. Moving up to the B tier are junglers that are not commonly seen but generally have better impact than the ones listed in the C tier. There are 4 champions that I would like to talk about. These are Morgana, Pyke, Samira, and Irelia. Morgana has fallen from grace, being an S tier jungle, and is now only a B tier. The reason why is because the recent patches are not favorable for this champion. It has removed her ability to easily double clear, Liandry not being stackable, and it doesn't deal double damage anymore when slowed or stunned. Morgana is now reduced to a stun and shield bot rather than being someone who can carry games. Another similar champion that was dominating before but now struggles in the jungle is Irelia. Irelia was one of the more dominant junglers before but is now a lot weaker due to the constant jungle nerfs that she has been receiving. She has now lost her glory days and is now better placed in a lane instead of the jungle. Next would be Pyke. He was briefly buffed in the jungle but is now nerfed again due to being an annoying jungle to go against, especially if you're a laner. Since his clear is a lot slower, he is now a feast or famine champion where you either get a lot of kills early and feed your team, or you get behind and become useless. That is why he is now placed in the B tier. Last champion that I would like to talk about is Samira. With the recent items that have been released, this is a big buff for Samira even though nothing has changed for the champion itself. The Immortal Shield Bow plus Collector combo is perfect for Samira, allowing her to become tankier and have an execute when in fights. I have tested Samira in the jungle and her clear is quite decent. She can also shine in objective fights due to her resets, but due to limited testing and experience, I still have my reservation and safely place her in the B tier. She definitely has the potential to become A tier depending on the team composition. After this, we go to the A tier. This is where most of the viable junglers reside. All of these champions have the potential of being S tier depending on the mastery of the player. Since there are so many champions listed here, I just want to talk about some interesting champions that have been placed in this tier. First off is Aatrox, once an S plus tier jungle on release, reduced into the A tier. The reason for this change is due to multiple factors. The first being the nerfs that he has gotten. Second would be the players that have gotten a lot better when fighting against this champion. And lastly, Aatrox has now become more dependent on team composition. It's now hard for Aatrox to engage by himself because he will just get bursted down, so now you need to have good timing when playing this champion. Don't get me wrong, he definitely still has the potential to become S tier when played properly, has a decent composition, and gets the reset that he loves. With the new items, this makes people play AD carry in multiple roles, which gives Rammus a bigger chance to shine a lot more. Being one of the most annoying champions against a marksman, this champion definitely destroys ADCs that are placed in a role besides the Dragon Lane due to Rammus' ganking prowess. The only issue here is the Immortal Shield Bow giving marksman additional survivability, nullifying Rammus' potential burst, and that's why he is still placed in the A tier. 2 champions that have benefited a lot from the new items are now viable junglers, which are Kai'Sa and Twitch. With this patch, which we call the Marksman patch, gives rise to the ADC role, giving them an avenue to the jungle as well. Before we only had Graves, that was a decent marksman in the jungle, but now we have Kai'Sa and Twitch. The main reason why Kai'Sa went up a tier is because of the new item and her passive change. The new attack speed passive of the Phantom Dancer works on large monsters, making champions that use this item have a faster clear. With Twitch, not only can he cheese gank at level 2, he can also clear the jungle pretty cleanly, and it will only get faster once he completes the Runaan's Hurricane. The last jungler I would like to talk about is Lilia. Another champion who was really strong on release is now having a hard time. With the new items not benefiting the mages at all, and Lilia having a weak early game, this further reduces her strength before getting into the late game where she shines. She is very dependent on her team on getting leads or hoping their jungle doesn't destroy your team. Short description before we move on is that Warwick is low-key OP, especially in lower ranks. Manamune Blue Cane is still an inferior assassin when compared to Kha'Zix, and Graves has gotten a bit better but is still not good enough to be placed in the S tier. On to the next, which is the S tier. These are the champions that can have huge impact in the game depending on how they are used. Riven, Rengar, and Vi are all flexible junglers that can easily adjust and adapt to whatever the team needs. They are in this tier because they are very effective junglers whether you build them tanky, damage, or even a mix of both. They are capable of tanking, initiating, and damaging at the same time, and since they could do almost anything, they definitely deserve their spot in the S tier. Olaf has gotten a small rework which buffs and nerfs him at the same time. For me, this is a buff because one of the biggest weaknesses of Olaf is being burstable when he uses his ultimate. But with the recent change, it makes Olaf more durable in fights in exchange for his damage, which was reduced a bit, and he is now a lot more killable when running away. That's why depending on how he is used, this could be an overall buff for the champion and can be placed in a situation where he can win the game by himself. An interesting champion that I have placed in this tier is Diana. Even with the Marksman patch, and despite being AP, Diana has proven herself worthy on being in this tier mostly because of her flexibility. Being a champion that can be tanky and deal a lot of damage, Diana can be scary to play against, especially if you give her a good opportunity to engage, allowing her to basically win a fight with a well-timed ultimate. She may be a bit hard to pilot, but in the right hands and situation, she would be able to carry the team by herself. A low-key champion that I have placed in this tier is Wukong. This champion can deal a lot of damage and is very annoying to play against. Being a sustainable tank that can DPS, for me, Wukong is the best champion right now if you're looking to peel and protect your teammates. Last in this tier would be Gwen. She easily deserves a spot in the S tier when it comes to scaling, but with the current meta being dependent on having an impact in the early game, Gwen struggles with this a lot since her clear, ganks, and damage are not that good when it comes to the early game, which endangers her spot in the S tier, giving a possibility to put her in the A tier by next patch. Now we go to the highest tier, which is the S plus tier. To start things off, Lee Sin is definitely still here if you have a strong mastery of the champion, but if he is not used in the right manner, there's a big possibility that he would only be an S to A tier champion. With the new items not only benefiting the marksman, it also benefits champions that uses crit, and with Yone being crit based, he is now risen again to the S plus tier and is most likely on autoban status, especially in the higher ranks. Unlike Gwen who only shines in the late game, Yone gets a decent power spike once he completes his first item. Not only does he deal a lot of damage, he is now tankier as well thanks to the shield bow, and with his kit giving him a burst, poke, and stuns, he is definitely one of the most broken junglers right now when used correctly. Despite no changes on this champion, Shyvana still deserves a spot in the S plus tier due to her fast clear, objective take, and carry potential. In fact, the new patch is favorable for her because Baron has gotten a lot weaker on the initial spawn, and before, Shyvana could solo Baron with 3 items, and now, she can solo Baron Nashor with only 2 items. Last but not the least champion in this tier is Kha'Zix. Still deserving of this tier because in this patch, ADCs are used a lot more, which is beneficial for Kha'Zix because he specializes on assassinating squishy targets. Even with the Immortal Shield Bow, this does not pose a threat to Kha'Zix because this champion can easily build Serpent's Fang to counter the barrier that the Shield Bow gives. All in all, this is my take on the jungle tier list for this patch. I have also taken into account the possible changes on 4.2a and still think the list is the same. If you have any questions, suggestions, or reactions, feel free to comment down below and I will be happy to check them out. If you enjoyed or learned from this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more content. That is it for me, and thanks for watching. Peace out. Ciao, ciao.
I'm finally facing it all, fearless.